Good morning and welcome, Chi Clubbers! On this fine Sunday morning, day 7 of the Chi Challenge. How are we doing? Yes! Well, today's topic is victory! And we're going to have a wonderful question and answer with the man, the woman, the Sheltons!
Are you ready?
We're ready.
Well, here we go. It's Sunday, the end of the 7-day challenge, and we thought we'd spend this time together to answer any questions about Qigong, in particular about Qi, energy. What is energy? What is the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong? Or if you have any health-related questions, this would be the great time for us to go ahead and do that.
Yes, indeed. Welcome.
So once again, welcome. If you're brand new, if you're joining us live on Facebook, my name is Chris Shelton. It's my wife, Parisa Shelton, and we have over, combined experience? I don't know.
We counted 50 years.
50 years. I must be getting old.
Reverse aging.
Reverse aging. That's one of the great things about Qigong as well, too.
That's right. There's a cat scratch going on in the background, but that's okay. We're going to stay focused here this morning. Do you want to start with a nice breath so we can get settled?
Sure. So we're going to go ahead and stop the music, and I want you guys to go ahead and get comfortable. You can either do this from a seated or standing position. So earlier on in the week, I talked about posture in this Wu Ji posture. And if you're seated, then what I'm doing, then what's going to happen is that you're going to go ahead and tuck the sacrum underneath, press back the Ming Men. Tip the tongue gently curled to the roof of the mouth behind the teeth as if saying the letter N. Allow the breath to be long, steady, even, and deep as we gather our breath and center ourselves for our time together today. What is it that you would like to get out of today's session as we complete the 7-day Qi challenge? With the breath long, steady, even, and deep into the lower abdomen, we feel ourselves becoming more calm and more relaxed with each inhalation and exhalation. And we're going to melt down through the front of the body, melting down from the crown point, enveloping the forehead, the brow bone, the eyebrows and eyes, the nose, the cheeks, the front of the face, the side of the ears, the base of the nose, into the lips. You can imagine this as warm oil as it flows down through the lips into the chin and jaw structure. Once again, we're just increasing our awareness of what's in front of us and bringing us into the present moment. Flowing into the front of the neck and throat, the upper chest, the shoulders, the biceps, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, palms of the hands, all the way out to the fingertips. And from here, we're going to envelop the entire chest, the ribs, the abdomen, the waist, the groin. Feel as this warm oil, this warm water flows through the groin into the thighs, the knees, the shins, ankles, feet, and toes. All connecting, all flowing off deep into the ground. And just take a moment to feel the front of your body from head to toe. Feel the left and right sides of the body. And now feel what's going on behind you. So melt it down through the back of the head, the ears, the base of the skull, into the neck, the shoulders, the triceps, the elbows, the forearms, wrists, back of the hands, all the way out to the fingertips. Keeping a strong connection between heaven and earth, you now feel the entire back as this warm oil relaxes all your muscles, your sinews, into the low back, the buttocks and hamstrings, the back of the knees, the calves, the ankles and heels. And allow for this warm oil to flow down deep into the ground. And now once again, just feel the back of your body from head to toe, feeling just as much in the back as you do to the front, as well as to the left and to the right. And now connecting to your higher power, or just imagine a white light. As we begin to melt down through the center of our being, this white light invigorates our awareness now of what's inside of us. We visualize now and feel simultaneously the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the space between the brain and the skull, the bones of the face, the cheeks, the eyes, the nerves that connect from behind the eyes to the center of the brain. Visualize your entire sinus cavity and inner ear, the upper palate of the mouth, the teeth, the gums, the tongue, the lower palate, traveling down now from each vertebra from the base of the skull down through the center of the neck and throat as we branch off into the shoulders, connecting to the biceps and triceps. We feel the bones of the upper arms, the shoulder girdle, the fascia, the connective tissue. As we flow down through the center of the elbows, the center of the forearms, feeling all the small bones and ligaments through the wrists, hands, and fingers. And now as this white light touches every rib, you feel as the ribs wrap around to the spine on the back. You feel and visualize the heart, the lungs, the liver and gallbladder on the right side of the body, the stomach and spleen on the left. This white light continues to flow through the abdominal cavity, enveloping the intestines, the bladder, the kidneys, the pubic bone, the sacrum, the bones of the legs, the muscles surrounding them, the center of the knees, the center of the shins, ankles, feet, and toes. And allow for this warm oil to flow down deep into the ground. And now from there, just allow for your feet to melt into the floor like you're standing on, and see a liquid energy comes up about the height of the ankles. And just feel your breath. Feel your body. Paying attention to what thoughts may be fleeing through you. And from here, we're going to slowly come back to the present moment, open up our eyes. And wow, we're ready to levitate.
Floated away there. All right, ready for some question and answers. And also, so you know we have the chat open on Facebook and on Zoom. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. But in the meantime, can you just tell us, start by some very basic fundamentals about what is Qi and how can we use Qi to create more health and balance inside our life?
Yeah, you know, Qi is expressed through everything, seen and unseen. And in grosser or denser states, this table for which we have the iPad on, even the iPad itself, everything is an expression of Qi. Everything is an expression of consciousness. You know, like Eckhart Tolle would say, if it had no consciousness, then its molecules would depart into nothingness. And so Qi is found within everything. And once you learn how to harness this, first and foremost for yourself, for your own well-being, then from there, then you could tap into the enormous pool of Qi that's flowing throughout the universe that we don't really have an awareness of. You know, like Master Ni says in one of his books, he says, you know, just like a fish in the ocean is unaware of the mass of water for which it swims in, we also are unaware of the mass energy network that we're a part of. That's why whatever thoughts that I have here can resonate around the world in a split second. And that's why they say, and that thought is an expression of Qi. That's why they say to be mindful of your thoughts. So when we talk about Qi, and if you're just brand new to Qigong or practicing Tai Chi, I always recommend that people think of it in terms of blood, because your blood is your Qi. We have a saying in Chinese medicine that the blood contains the Qi, and the Qi moves the blood and circulates it around the body. So Gong, the Gong part of Qigong, is then the skill. How can we harness this energy? How can we really tap into it? And so from these simple practices, and if you're already a Qi Club member, you probably have already experienced it, whether it's a moving Qigong practice or like that center and balance meditation that we just did, we are now tapping into this enormous pool of energy. And we're all a vibration too. And disease is a vibration. Disease is a lower vibration. Health is a higher vibration. And so once we break through and start to really understand, like, oh, hey, like I have this ability to improve my health, to improve my well-being and tap into this enormous pool of energy, then, you know, the sky's really the limit. Then, you know, you can really feel this vitality that we're all meant to have. So as we refine ourselves, some people will say, oh, I'm going to work, I worked on myself, or I'm working on myself. And, you know, I think that kind of has a negative connotation attached to it. when we refine ourselves, when we continually do introspection of how can we uplift our spirit, and at the same time in our chi, how can we uplift humanity? How can we help uplift and support what's going on in our environment? And even if you're somebody, let's say, because of health issues, you're stuck at home, believe it or not, by uplifting your own vibration, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter where you are, that vibration definitely resonates outward.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's the cool part about being a human.
Well, the cool thing about being a human is that we're able to recognize that we have this ability of higher achievement or higher attainment. Our daughter, a couple of weeks ago, she had come up and visited us from the Central Coast, and she was talking, and she's frustrated because she's in a career change right now. And one of the things that she said to me, she says, "Well, I can't be an entrepreneur. I can't be my own business owner." And she said, "I don't have that ability." And I had to correct her. I had to pause her. I said, "No, we all have this ability if you choose to tap into it." So it becomes a conscious choice. Now, grant you, some people are better at becoming an entrepreneur, and some people work better when they're working underneath or working for somebody because they need that structure and that guidance. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you're responsible for your success or your failure. It's not dependent upon an outside force. It's really dependent on your love and passion for what it is that you do. But my point to her was that we all have this ability. It just depends on if you want to tap into it. And Jim Rohn says it best. He says, one of my favorite philosophers on character building and financial independence, he says it best, the same wind blows on us all. It's just the direction of the sail that determines our outcomes. And true, sometimes we are born into families or into systems or into societies that may suppress us, but it becomes a conscious choice. I was, as most of you know that are part of the Chi Club, I was born into an abusive home. There was a lot of violence and neglect, and I had a choice. I could have played the victim, and I was a victim for quite a while. That's why I did drugs for so many years. That's why I had the 2 heart attacks, and that's why I had the other health problems. But really, that was the catalyst. When I got the opportunity to start practicing Qigong, and I saw already after a few weeks, like, oh wow, there's all these changes that are happening within me. I made the conscious choice, like, oh, there's something to this, and I don't want to be stuck in the family pattern for which I was born in, so I want to change it. And Qigong was an avenue for me to be able to change it, because it's about my own introspection and my own internal cultivation, which then determines my outcomes.
Wow, that's so deep. It's like you can use Qi to change the programming of your brain.
Sure can.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, we have a really nice comment from Jen Primer, who is a Qi clubber and also a Qigong teacher trainer. Good morning, XO. Love you too. Not a question, but actually a request. We know we can do Qigong seated, and also PS, you can do it lying down. But it would be wonderful if Chris could publish a video of an entire practice done while seated. That way, for those who can't stand and are searching for something like that, we can find the seated Qigong practice and then learn that they can do it any other way, as well as sitting, standing, and lying down.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And we said this also earlier this week, that because when I first started practicing, or my clinical practice actually of seeing patients in clinic, one of my first patients had lupus, and he was so deficient that I would show him these Qigong practices, and he was so weak that he couldn't even lift his arms. And so he would use his mind intent to be able to do the practices. And now it took us a while. It wasn't, an overnight success, but after about 1.5 years, guess what? He was able to do the practices, lift his arms, and really use his mind focus. And this goes back to the power of the mind focus, of being able to, he could watch me do the movements, memorize it, and this is before YouTube. He could memorize it, and then what would happen is he would practice it daily. Or if I gave him a healing sound, for example, doing the healing sound and focusing on the emotion. So yes, we could go ahead and do a seated practice. I think that would be a great idea, especially because we work with the Special Olympics, and as a Strong Minds clinical director for California, I think it's a good idea. But also too, to recognize too, that I guess what I'm saying too is that even if you are somebody who can't move from the neck down, that you could visualize these movements and these meditations and still receive great benefit.
That's cool. And also you're reminding me, because we work with the Santa Clara County, and we just actually started a class for seated meditation movements at your desk.
At your desk.
So that would fit in right there. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Jen. We'll put that out there. Okay, from Rachel Sterling on Facebook.
Hi, Rachel.
What is the difference in energy function in the kidneys and the dantian?
Very good question. You know what's interesting, Rachel, about you asking me that question is a few weeks ago, someone who works closely with the Bruce Lee estate reached out to me with a handwritten letter from Bruce Lee. It was a note that Bruce Lee had actually written to himself about the cultivation of Qi. In this case here, the cultivation of Qi for power, for fighting. And so they gave me the translation of it. I actually gave it to my Sifu, my Tai Chi grandmaster. He just sent me back the translation 2 days ago, and I'm going through that translation, his translation, which was more expanded. And what's interesting is that there's only one Qi, and this is because I already started doing the translation. There's only one Qi. And but what's cool is that once it enters into the body, that Qi now changes its name depending on what its function is. So we are born with our Li Qi, or congenitive Qi, which is or also referred to as our pre-heaven Qi, which is derived from God, the Tao, whatever you want to call it, our environment, and our parents at the time of conception. This is the creator for our overall constitution. How well will we fight off disease? How well do we handle stress? Now, contained within that's in the root of the kidneys itself. Then from the kidneys, we have what is called the Jing Qi. This is what Bruce Lee was talking about. We have the Li Qi, or the congenitive Qi, which is our physical Qi. But then we have what we call as our Jing Qi, which can be refined.
Okay.
So,
wait, lychee? Is that like the...
No, not
fruit?
lychee.
Oh, okay. No, just kidding.
Not lychee. Not those yummy little spiky fruits.
Lychee.
Li, L-I. So, or also referred to as congenitive Qi. But
Okay.
so another expression is our congenitive, is our Jing Qi, which is also an expression of our kidneys. Now, what Bruce was saying is that we're all born with a certain physical or congenitive Qi, meaning that we could only expand it. There's only so much that we could do with that, and it's something that can't really be replenished. But what happens is that we can go ahead and with this Jing Qi is we can refine it. Now, part of feeding it into the lower dantian comes from our stomach and our spleen. So one of my favorite Qi inside the body is the
Gucci.
No, yes, it's a Gucci, but it's okay. It's my designer Qi.
Oh, sorry.
She killed my pun.
I killed your punchline.
My punchline. I was trying to find the word for my designer Qi, which is also referred to as the Gucci. So what happens is that by harnessing into the lower dantian, in which, by the way, the lower dantian is this field or elixir of energy that resides about 1 inch below the belly button, we then can replenish and refine that through this Jing essence. So this is why I'm going into this deep explanation. But part of this Jing essence too is it has to be replenished by our digestion, by our food, by our post-heaven Qi. So there is a direct connection when we focus on the lower dantian that we are using this kidney Jing, we are using some of this congenital Qi in order to refine our overall essence. And when we talk about it in terms of like what Bruce Lee was talking about, he's talking about it in terms of a martial art, we then can use it for internal power and strength. My purpose of focusing on the lower dantian is for you to, number one, get you out of your head. So that's like the white pearl meditation that we end every single class with on the Qi Club, as well as we have this meditation on iTunes and Spotify, etc. The purpose also is, besides getting out of your head, but is also to go ahead and be able to store this essence of life and to refine it. And now there's certain meditations. We could do the microcosmic pearl meditation. We could do the white pearl meditation. We do even the smaller heaven breathing meditation that I've done every once in a while in the Qigong, on the Qi Club, where we pull the energy from the perineum to the kidneys or to the Ming Men through the body, emerging right below the belly button and circulating around. And when we talk about in the style of Qigong that we teach here, we talk about, okay, we have our lower Dantian, physical, our middle Dantian and our heart center, mental, emotional. Our upper Dantian is our spiritual. But in certain forms of Qigong schools, your lower and middle Dantian is actually your perineum and your Mingmen. So it's a proper combination of yin and yang. So this is what develops the power. This is what develops our refinement. And this is why also going back to having healthy diet is so important, is because once again, the healthy diet, our post-heaven Qi, feeds our Jing Qi. So if you're refining this Jing Qi for, in our case here, for health and vitality and longevity, then what happens is that we need to have a healthy diet and a healthy eating environment when you are eating as well too.
So functionally, the key difference between the Dantian and the kidneys in one sentence?
I can't say that in one sentence. You know me, I love to talk. I'm like, blah, information. Let me just, blah, I'll give you more information.
Functionally, what's the difference? Like one sentence.
One sentence, they are connected, but the Dantian gives you a space for which to refine. Think of it like a storage center for this life force energy, and this is the area for which your refinement occurs.
Meanwhile,
in the meanwhile, the kidneys play a role into feeding that lower Dantian.
And also part of our prenatal.
Our prenatal or Gucci.
Almost like in Western medicine, you might call it like your DNA pattern or something like that.
Well, you could actually refine that DNA pattern. That's the whole idea. And in Taoist philosophy, the belief structure is that, Taoist believes that you could actually have immortality through cultivating this life essence. Now, there's a series of practices, and we're not just doing
maybe not
Qigong for 10 or 15 minutes, where you're talking hours and hours and hours of specific practices to refine that.
Okay, maybe not DNA, but maybe like the kidneys are kind of like the container.
They're the container.
The container that we're given, and then we can adjust and expand and enhance, improve, or go the other way with the container, the vessel.
Yeah, so
that allows us to be here.
We could either refine it, and because the philosophy says that we're supposed to live 120 years, and that's dying a graceful death and not suffering until the day you die. So that's where that refinement comes in. Or, like you said, you could abuse this kidney Qi. You could burn the candles at both ends, drink too much, have too much stress for prolonged periods of time in your body, in your environment, and this will deplete your kidney essence.
I see. Interesting. Okay, well, while we're talking about Qi, could you just briefly let us know the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi? And do you do both in the Qi Club?
Well, I personally like to take time out for a little chai tea.
Chai tea.
Just kidding. The difference between Qigong and Tai Chi. Qigong is actually the foundation of Tai Chi, but I think you learned this last week because we were talking with the Bruce Lee estate about the power, and you're like, wait a second, there's no internal practices for Tai Chi. And I'm like, well, no, actually there really is. But Tai Chi is a series of movements, and they have to, and generally speaking, if you're practicing classical or a traditional Tai Chi, also referred to as Tai Chi, Taiji. So I train and practice Chen family Tai Chi Chuan. So there's a series of movements that are done, like it's called a form, or in karate it's called a kata. And then what happens is that the series of movements is the same way, it's taught the same way that it was taught 1,000 years ago. And so they're kind of strict, Grandmaster, they're kind of strict as far as making sure that if you are going out there to teach it, that you are maintaining this direct methodology for teaching it and keeping the form the same.
Right. It can be very specific. For example, he'll be like, Tai Chi, it takes a while to learn. Okay, your hand will be like this. He says, no, don't keep your hand like this. Keep your hand like this. It's like very specific.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, because one of the things that Parisa's in her refinement of practicing Tai Chi is that she would go and do the movement and her hands would end up like this. Well, if my fingers are like this, guess what? The Qi isn't reaching the fingers. So we want to guide the Qi to the fingertips. So going back to the Dantian, when we do our movement, the energy flows from the Dantian to the fingertips, and then when we come back, the energy flows back. So in all those movements, and the reason why it's so good for health is because those slow movements, you have to have the physical posture of the Wu Ji posture through the movement. So it's one thing to practice Qigong and stand in Wu Ji and do, let's say, like the liver move. It's another thing to practice a Tai Chi form and maintain that Wu Ji posture. While at the same time, it's teaching you how to listen to your body. For example, if my arm is up like this, then guess what? My chi is now stuck in my shoulder. So I need to gently drop the arm, drop the elbow. Now the chi could flow. I'm actually much stronger here. If I'm up here like this, then I'm much weaker. So it teaches you how to listen to your body. And each of those movements are actually martial art applications as well too. Now, if you're going to use it as a martial art, then what happens is then when you first learn how to listen to yourself, you could then learn how to listen to your opponent. And I'm not talking either. I mean, by touching.
You say something?
Listen, by listening. Yeah. So not by talking, because the difference, like in kickboxing,
it's like tuning in.
Yeah, the difference, like with kickboxing and Muay Thai or whatever, we start off across the ring from our opponent. Tai Chi, we start off touching our opponent. And as soon as I touch the opponent, then what happens is you could feel where he's holding tension inside the body. And then when the referee blows a whistle, then you attack that area, throw him off the leotai, do a china, whatnot, and
go for where the tension is.
Yeah. So the whole idea is emptiness.
Emptiness. So there are the applications of both Qigong and Tai Chi, right?
Yeah, so it's both contained within each other, and there are some specific Tai Chi practices that cultivate this Qi for power, and some people would say that those are actually Qigong practices. Now there are different, like I said, there are different styles of Qigong. The style that we teach with Shelton Qigong is based on the 5 element school, and the reason why is because the 5 element school is a further expression of yin and yang, number 1, and number 2, the 5 elements describes so many different things. When we're talking about our bodies, it talks about our different organs, our different emotions, the different foods, but also connecting to our environment, it's the different seasons, the climatic conditions, like summer heat and dryness of autumn and fall, cold of winter, wind of spring, those types of things. So we're tapping into everything. We're taking everything into account. So I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, it's like they're different, but they're similar. And do you do both in the Chi Club?
So we do, yeah, we do. I've introduced a little bit like what we call, there's a form in the Chen family Tai Chi called Sinjia, which means new frame. And they have a whole series of drills in Chen family Tai Chi Chuan, which is called the 13 energy drills. And occasionally what I'll do is I will introduce what is called as the 4 energies, or the opening movement for Sinjia, which encompasses the first 4 energies, which is Peng, Ji, Lui, and An. And also too, we will do what is referred to as some silk reeling practices to loosen up the joints and the ligaments. And silk reeling was developed because our grandmaster, Chen Qingzhou, he was really funny when he was alive. He was here in San Jose and talking about the development of silk reeling, because in Chen Village, they train their Tai Chi like a martial art. It's a full-time job. You get up at 5 a.m., you train from 5 to 8, and then from there, you have breakfast from 8 to 9, then from 9 to noon you train, noon to 1 you have lunch, and then you train from 1 to 5. So it's a full-time job. But anyways, he said that the silk reeling was developed, number 1, not only to loosen up all the ligaments of the body, starting from the head all the way down to the feet, but a lot of those silk reeling movements are actually parts of the Tai Chi form itself. And he said they actually developed it because they realized that a lot of Americans were too lazy to practice their Tai Chi on a daily basis.
It happens.
When's the last time you practiced your Tai Chi, Mom?
Tai Chi just takes so much focus. And I'm seeing that there's a chat that popped up over here that's not popping up over there, so I'll step to the other computer in a moment. But in the meantime, can you just tell us real quick about the origins? Like, where does this practice come from? How was it developed? How did they know about 5 elements and the interconnectedness of all things?
So I believe that our innate beings, if you go back thousands of years ago, were so closely connected and in tune with nature that they're able to study nature. But it wasn't just using mathematics or science. It's direct observation. And so minus the ego, they're able to see this interconnectedness with all things. So the changing of the seasons, as things continue to evolve. For example, there's a classical textbook called the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Chinese Medicine, or also referred to as the Su Wen, or the Yellow Emperor's Classics of difficulties. And the reason for that title is because what they realized is that the foundation of Chinese medicine was based actually on viruses and bacteria and flus and plagues. And so most of the textbook, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Difficulties, talks about in depth the flus and the viruses that come up when seasons are not in season. So what they realized, like, well, summer heat is supposed to be summer heat. So then we're supposed to eat things like watermelon and cherries and peaches and those types of things, asparagus, that are naturally found. Well, it depends on where you live in the world, because where you live is also going to make a difference as well, too. And so they recognize that there's a direct connection. They also recognize that based upon your location of where you lived, how the starry particles and the planets and the sunlight reach the earth, which is all an expression of qi. And depending on the geographical location and whether there's mountains, plains, or whatnot, that it will create the different types of various forms of animal life, plant life, etc. So they studied this. It's a full-time study. Like Chinese astrology, it was 24/7, year-round for years and years and years, documenting the movement of the heavens. But people realized, I believe that people were so in tune with nature, that the development of Qigong was that they're so in tune with nature, they realized that gentle movements can mimic that of the universe. That's what they say Tai Chi is. They say the movements of Tai Chi mimic the movements of the constellations. They recognize that when they face a certain direction, that they could create a certain effect inside their body. Or if they place their house, now getting into feng shui, which is how you place objects or your home or whatnot in certain areas or certain directions in order to bring balance about. The development of the I Ching, which is the book of change and the unchanging truths, was developed because ancient sages of the time started to realize that mankind was de-evolving from their spiritual centers. So the whole idea is that, well, how can I bring myself back to my spiritual center and be more in accordance and in tune with nature, based upon the laws of appropriateness, not based upon man's laws.
Wow. Jen made a comment that Qigong is a simple practice with profound results. Tai Chi is more complex practice with profound results. Qigong is great for those who want to see results now.
Yeah, so if somebody calls and says, I'm interested in taking a Qigong or Tai Chi class, what practice should I do? And I ask them, well, what is your purpose? If your purpose is to improve health right away and to reduce stress right away, I definitely recommend the Qigong. Tai Chi, especially traditional Tai Chi, takes a lot longer to learn. There's so many components of Tai Chi, and I love Tai Chi. But if you want something more physical that also will help to improve your health from, like reducing blood pressure and helping our lymphatic system and helping with gentle strength and gentle stretching and lengthening, then I definitely would recommend the Tai Chi. And because there is a lot more movement with the Tai Chi. But if you want health, achieve that, if you have some kind of health problem, you have some kind of emotional problem going on with you, then you want to do the Qigong first.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Okay, one more. Lola is asking, what are basic body charts that we might want to order to familiarize ourselves with meridians and points on the body?
Well, that's a great question. There's a book, I'm pretty sure it's still in publication. It's like $9 or $10. It's called A Way to Locate Acupoints. It's written in Chinese, but it's a very straightforward book showing you where all the acupuncture meridians are. Like,
do you have an English book?
It's still one of the best. If you wanted to understand the point functions, I would recommend, now you're getting into acupuncture textbooks, and I would recommend Wiseman's book on the foundations of Chinese medicine, or the foundations of acupuncture. I'd recommend that book. I'd also would recommend getting an acupuncture meridian doll,
Oh, the doll's a good one.
Yeah, and so for example, in my next book that's coming out on how to fix back problems yourself, I'm talking about different areas, because believe it or not, it's not just your back. We have to look at organ dysfunction as well too. So I'm talking about, well, these are areas that you could cup to reinforce the treatment for the back, whether it's a thoracic issue, you have a rib out, lumbar, cervical issues. And so it's great to look at that acupuncture meridian doll to say, because I'm going to say, okay, I want you to cup liver 14, stomach 21, gallbladder 26, and if you have a meridian doll, that's actually, then it doesn't matter if it's in English or not.
True.
In most acupuncture meridian dolls will have, they'll have the abbreviation, for example. So instead of saying liver, it'll say like LV. Instead of saying kidney, it may say KD or KI. And then on the opposite side of the doll, it will have the Chinese characters for the points.
Got it. Interesting. I was going to ask something and then I lost my train of thought.
Maybe you should practice more Qigong.
No, what I was going to say about a great resource, this is what it was. There's a website called Yin Yang House, yinyanghouse.com, and they have all the meridians, and it's like sometimes if I don't have a book in front of me or I'm trying to what's that point? You can go to yinyanghouse.com and they'll show you the specific meridians. It'll say the description for what each point means and what its function is. So that's a really great resource that you can get on the web. Okay, I'm looking at Facebook.
Okay.
I'm just looking at the bottom one first because Cynthia,
Hi, Cynthia,
also a Chi Clubber, says talk more about cupping and how it works.
So cupping, there's different types of cupping. We actually did a cupping class that was both live and via Zoom last summer, like the beginning of summer, right? I think somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyways, so there's two types. There's the suction type where you have the little suction gun, and then you have the glass jar where you take, a pair of forceps, for example, a cotton ball, you soak it saturated with alcohol, stick that inside the cup, or you light it and stick that inside the glass cup, and then what happens is it sucks the oxygen out. That creates a vacuum, and this is how the cup sticks. So, so sometimes in clinical practice, I will mix and match the glass cupping or traditional fire cupping with the plastic suction cupping. If I want to create change more quickly, then a lot of times I will utilize the plastic cups. But what cupping does, and what's interesting is that some people will mistake cupping when it leaves a mark as it's bruising, but I could cup your whole entire back. Only areas where you're going to see the dysfunction is where you're going to see the discoloration. And what it does is it helps to move the lymph system, helps to move blood, helps to remove stagnation. And if you know the function of the points, then what happens is that you could come up with a strategy in order to help with disease. Because instead of using an acupuncture needle like your acupuncturist would do, believe it or not, you could actually use that cup sometimes kind of like a needle in order to stimulate the point and excuse me, if you have an organ dysfunction, then you could utilize the cup to help to release that organ dysfunction. For example, small intestine 11, which is in the center of your scapula, your shoulder blade. If you read the clinical textbooks, they talk about how small intestine 11 is good for shoulder pain, which it is. But what I found throughout the years is that if I cup it, and more importantly, if I do a technique called gua sha first on small intestine 11, then cup it, guess what? It releases the emotions of the heart because the small intestine channel or the small intestines actually connect back to the heart. Small intestine 11, center of that shoulder blade, there is a very powerful point for helping to release stuck emotions of the heart.
Yeah, I felt that one before. It does, it really works. Okay, that's a great question. And now we have a question on Facebook from Bonnie.
Hi, Bonnie.
Who's also a Chi Clubber. She says, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which has a bazillion side effects, and I feel like I'll never be well again. Any advice?
So yeah, so those types of diseases, and by the way, just so we know, so we talk about in the Chi Club when we're going through the liver move that the liver and the gallbladder work together. So when you have a liver imbalance, chances are you're going to have a gallbladder imbalance. But that liver of yours has over 800 functions. And one of the things that it does, according to classical Chinese medicine, is it actually influences your thyroid. So believe it or not, we actually when a patient comes in, we actually treat the liver and gallbladder to help the thyroid. And so when we look at Hashimoto's, when we look at things like Lyme disease, when we look at fibromyalgia, what else? When we look at lupus, then what happens is that the main organ dysfunction there is the liver and how the person deals with anger. Because anger has gotten a bad rap. Anger is actually a good emotion if it causes you to fight for the underdog, to get out of a bad situation. That's what that anger is good for. But if you're not expressing that anger correctly, or even worse, you don't feel anger. So like with my patients that have lupus and Lyme, one of the common threads with those people is that they don't even know what anger is. And it doesn't mean necessarily that they had to have had an abusive childhood or an abusive father or something like that where they disconnected with the anger. It doesn't necessarily mean that. They could have had a great childhood, but for whatever the reason, internally they disconnected from it. So your nervous system says, well, guess what? We're creatures of emotions, and we need to express this somehow, otherwise it's going to show up. So I do believe that it can be reversed. It's really tapping into that old anger. It's really tapping into what's going on in your current day. Some of my clients through this whole pandemic, I had to put them on a Facebook and a CNN diet and Fox News diet because they got so caught up in the news and in social media, they were making themselves sick, clinically sick. And so I said, like I tell people, you want to be informed as to what's going on out there. You don't want to be like an ostrich and just pretend like, oh, nothing's going on. But you don't want to be so absorbed into it to where it riles you up and it makes you sick. So if you have this kind of stuff going on and you already have old stuff that's stored in the liver, guess what? This is going to further exacerbate. It's like a cup. The cup is full.
The cup is full.
The cup is full.
So your advice would be to look at past hurts,
anger, resentments. And by the way, anger and resentment also turns into sorrow too when it's held on to for a long period of time.
Wow.
And remember, going back to those various types of inflammatory diseases, the liver also influences the nervous system as well too.
Oh, so there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is hope.
Of course there's hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope.
And also changing the rhetoric. I feel like I'll never be well again.
Yeah. Oh, yes. She brings up a good point. I feel like so one of the things I really love quantum mechanics and quantum physics. I love that movie, The Secret. A better movie is What the Bleep Do We Know About This World? And what we say is, and this is what I tell my clients that come in, is that they'll say, my lupus or my Lyme disease. I'm like, wait, pause a second. Let's not own it. It's not yours. It's a dysfunction, yes, or a discord, yes, but let's not own it. Let's now change the rhetoric. I have this temporary condition called, or has been assessed as. But the rhetoric should then be, even if you are feeling lousy and not feeling good, is that I choose to co-create with my higher creator or God that I am healthy, well, and vibrant. And even if you have to write that down and hang that on your mirror, I think is very powerful. And, the reason why, the mirror in the bathroom, the reason why I say this is because, we get up in the morning, we get ready to brush our teeth and stuff. Before bed, a lot of times, hopefully we're brushing our teeth a couple times a day at least. You could always look at that and recite it yourself. Yeah, so changing the rhetoric, the mindset around it, like I'm never going to get better, perpetuates that. If you say, no, I'm healthy, vibrant, and strong, then eventually that helps to further help in the healing process.
That makes sense. And actually, Lola just dropped a comment that said you told her to say this every day, and it's helped her so much. In every single day, in every single way, I am better, 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 and better. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's a Jose Silva technique also. Jose Silva, when was he alive?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, he has a Silva technique.
70s?
Yeah, in the 60s or 70s. And a lot of his stuff came from, what's his name? Think You Grow Rich.
Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. So even Napoleon Hill was the 30s, was talking about this kind of stuff too, about your mindset and what you say and how it comes about. And the cool thing about Jose Silva is that he's about tapping into that right brain more. And and how to go about doing that. And so some of these things, like each and every day, each and every way, I am better, better, and better, is a powerful mantra to be able to change the vibration inside your body. I've said this before on the Chi Club. If you wake up, spill your cup of coffee, step on your kids' Legos barefoot, and say, "Oh, this is going to be a crappy day," then guess what? It's going to probably be a crappy day. If you change the rhetoric and say, and just laugh it off, or say, "I'm looking forward to all the positive outcomes of today," then that will happen. Growing up as a kid, I'm just going to be real for a second, just being real as a kid. My dad would say to me a lot of times, like, "You stupid piece of shit," right? He'd call me that, right? Or "You dumb shit," right? So for the longest time as a teenager, like, and even into my early 20s, even after I started practicing Qigong, that's what I would say to myself. So if I did something, let's say if I dropped the container of orange juice, or I tripped over a stair, I say, "Oh, Chris, you're a stupid piece of blah, 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 blah." And then I caught myself and realized, well, shoot, this is my father's old pattern that was instilled into me. So I'm going to change that. And so now when I do something stupid, when I do something, caught myself. See, I caught myself. When I do something unconscious, when I have some kind of unconscious behavior, then what I do is I say, "Oh, Chris, you're so smart." And so I change it. Actually. Yeah, I do say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Bonnie, you can change it to something like, "I have the ability contained within myself to be well."
Yeah, and vibrant.
Well and vibrant, healthy and happy. And actually look up the Silva technique, because that's been very helpful. And sometimes in the Chi Club, actually at the end of practice, when we do that visualization technique with our eyes looking to the left, that's taken from the Silva method. Okay, one more question here. How do I recognize progress within the Chi Club?
Well, it depends. Like if you're healthy and you started the Chi Club, you may notice certain things like your relationships with people improve. Because you're a vibration, and when you increase your vibration and resonate at a higher vibration, then you tend to draw in people at a higher vibration. You may notice that you're sleeping better. You may notice that you have more energy. But it's very subtle. If you have health issues, you'll just wake up one day and say, "Wow, I used to suffer from X, Y, and Z. Don't suffer from it anymore." And it's like when our clients come in, I take soap notes on everybody, and I keep detailed soap notes, because what will happen a lot of times is patients will actually forget where they were or how bad their symptoms were. One of the things I like to say too is that if you're practicing Qigong every day, you may not notice that your growth, how much you have grown or how much you have developed yourself, until you stop. When you stop, you may then notice, like, "Oh wow, like I was at this place, and now I see that difference." Now the cool thing is that when you stop and you go back, it doesn't take you as long to get back to that place.
Right. It's kind of like riding a horse or riding a bike.
Yeah. I mean, it's get back on it, and it won't take you as long. Like at first, a little bit of time, you have to develop the routine again or whatnot. But it's like sparring or boxing or whatever. A month or two away from the boxing gym, you go back in, and guess what? Your timing is off, your cardio is off. But if you go back in, then guess what? And keep on training, then you get that timing back. You get your footwork back, you get your cardio back, right?
And also journaling, I think, is a great way to track progress too.
Journaling your daily, what's going on for you. I'm just reading another book right now, and this gal here, she's talking about journaling, and it's something I recommend to the clients as well. But believe it or not, journaling, especially if you have insomnia, journaling before bed. Now, a lot of times I'll journal the whole day, like I got up at 7 a.m. I had my hot water and coconut.
I got irritated at my wife.
I asked her to give me my space, for which she finally got the hint and did. I did step on that Lego, but I took it like a champ. So I will write out, all the stuff that has gone on, and what I'll figure out is that, like, even things that maybe people have said or things that I've observed or whatever, then I'll be able to recognize that. But also, too, I'll be able to recognize my own patterns, too, and be able to change that. And guess what? You actually will sleep a lot better if you get that stuff out before you go to bed at night.
That transference.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a whole 2 pages or 3 pages like my journaling is. It could be just a simple, straightforward paragraph. That's all it has to be. Yeah.
Okay, one more thing, because Bonnie chimed back in on the chat.
Okay.
So we were talking about how, the anger and dealing with that. She says, well, guess where all that anger has gone for me?
Where?
An antidepressant. I don't cry anymore ever.
That's okay, Bonnie. Thank you for being so raw and so open, because this is helpful for everybody. And this is going back to the emotion. Like, we are meant to cry. We're meant to show our emotion. When the emotion gets suppressed, then yes, the blood in the chi of the liver gets stuck, turns into depression, because now the heart doesn't get the nourishment that it needs of blood, and then the mind doesn't get it. So yeah, so when you stop crying, when you stop showing your emotions, this is how these inflammatory diseases show up. So it's reprogramming yourself, like, you know what, I am going to express myself. When I'm in a situation, I'm going to express how I feel. If there's family members that have old patterning with you, and you've had a history of just keeping quiet or whatever, this is the time now where you speak up. Because when you get a chance, when you speak up about what is your truth, then you actually are releasing it. When you suppress it, then what happens is that it gets bound up in the tissues, gets bound up in the organs, and yes, then we see things like depression, and then we see things like Lou Gehrig's disease, Hashimoto's disease. We see these things, and so it's not, because the funny thing is that your DNA wants to be healthy. And Deepak Chopra, him and that brain surgeon several years ago wrote the book The Super Gene, and they talk about it. Your DNA wants to be healthy. What happens is it gets stuck. And true, you would be born into a family history of depression or schizophrenia or high blood pressure. But like what they say in the book, like what Deepak says, is that if you change your environment, change your emotional reaction to situations and to stimuli, and also your diet too, guess what? You won't get it. Your DNA wants to be healthy. And that's the cool thing going back to Qigong, is that it gives you a possibility to unlock that stuckness. The key is, that's different than conventional therapy, is that when I want you to think of things, Bonnie, that have made you angry, that you should have cried about, that you haven't cried about, I want you to feel it. I want you to see it. And then as you inhale, pulling the breath into the liver and gallbladder, then as you exhale, making the shoe sound or doing the liver move, I want you to imagine that circumstance leaving like a dark cloud going away from the body. And you may have to do it over and over again, and not doing it once, because certain traumatic or certain situations may have layers. So you may find that there's layers to, let's say, a family event, or an external event. So it's imperative that we connect not only with the emotion, the trauma, but also the organ for which it attacks, and the color. That's why in the Chi Club I talk about the color. You could even face east, for example, if you want to. We do that with the 5-direction meditation. So the more that you connect with the organs, because unfortunately science hasn't figured out yet that these different emotions attack different organs of the body and show up as inflammatory diseases. And by the way, Bonnie, inflammation is, besides COVID, inflammation is one of the top key words right now, because there's so many different types of inflammatory diseases out there.
That's true.
So yeah, so being able to allow yourself to cry is huge in being able to reverse the disease process.
I think in this case, maybe the antidepressants changed the chemistry.
Could have changed the chemistry.
But then it's always like you have to work with your doctor. You can't just come off of those. You have to, there's a process.
Yeah, and if you have an acupuncturist near where you live, I would recommend seeing an acupuncturist. There are herbal formulas that we give to our clients for depression and anxiety disorders, also for suicidal tendencies and anger issues. So I would work with an acupuncturist, work with your primary physician too, because like Parisa said, you can't just get off a lot of those medications. But I would work with...
You can't just go cold turkey.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
so you have to work with your primary. But also too, I'd work with an acupuncturist to see what herbal formulas, as you're doing your Qigong, you could utilize, that you could incorporate in, that will not be contraindicated with your medication, to help you get off the medication and help you transform what is going on temporarily inside your body.
Yeah, we have we believe we have that ability. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Donna.
Hi, Donna.
Also a Chi Clubber. Bonnie said, "Oh my God, thank you."
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you
All
for
right,
sharing.
back to the question. I have an intermittent daily debilitating pain on the top middle side of my foot above the arch, and I don't know why. It feels like an intense internal squeezing that comes on suddenly and lasts about a minute. Any thoughts or suggestions, re what's going on or what I may do to heal such a thing?
Interesting. So that's your stomach meridian where you're talking about. That's around, if I'm, that's right, stomach 41, or top of the foot, stomach 42. So what you could do is you could do more of the spleen cleansing exercise. You know, I talk about hot water and lemon in the morning. Maybe for you, you have hot water and ginger in the morning, fresh ginger, and you drink that throughout the day. So there's something probably going on with digestion. And take care, Lola. Thank you for joining us. There's probably something going on with digestion, and so I look at that. You could also massage the top of the foot out through the toes, and imagine a yellow cloud filling up through those channels and out through the toes to help to clear.
Massage the top of the foot to the toes. When it's hurting, or just like at night? Is there a specific
Well, you could
time
do
of
it.
day?
You could do it before bed, or but also too, I recommend doing it while it's hurting as well.
Okay, and then also anything with the psoas?
It might possibly be the psoas. So then we have a video on the psoas stretch, so I look at that as well too. And but it's something related to digestion.
Digestion. Wow, that's a little counterintuitive because it's the top of the foot.
Yeah, unless they're Nike Airs don't have enough air.
Okay, so and also maybe look at the shoes, or no?
You can look at the shoes, but 9 times out of 10, and this is what I wrote about in my second book on plantar fasciitis and Achilles heels issues, is that a lot of times it comes up to the psoas and the groin, cutting off the channel pathways that lead all the way down through the knees and through the feet. So I look at that psoas. Believe it or not, that thing controls so much.
Psoas in the stomach.
Digestion. Yeah. Did you know that some knee pains also, a lot of knee pains, unless you had a tear, ACL or whatever, goes back to digestion as well too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. One more.
One more.
This one's too. This one's pretty easy.
Okay.
Well, from Jen, regarding cupping, will we have an opportunity to take a cupping class with Chris soon?
Oh, we have to talk about that because people are asking for a face reading class.
Oh my gosh, face reading. You said that was going to be in September, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Look, we're in September and
shoot.
it's not on the calendar. So we'll probably do another cupping class. But first I want to do the face reading because there's so many people. Face reading is so much fun to learn, and you get to learn. What's cool about it is that you get to learn how to read other people, but it's more really about introspection into yourself. That's the fun thing about it.
Okay, so face reading, then cupping class. We'll have to get onto our schedule and
schedules.
see about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and just Jen said, I want to take them all. Yes.
Yeah. There's, and that's what I love about these arts as we get ready to part way for this
Cynthia
chat.
said, great, both please.
Both please, yeah.
And also Donna said, thank you so much. I'm on the suggestions.
Oh, beautiful, great. Yeah, the great thing I love about these arts is that it may be originated in China itself, but it's not necessarily a Chinese art. I really want to emphasize that. The cool thing is that there's so many different tools to balance out your health. We have Qigong, we have nutrition, because we look at the energetic properties of food. So we use food as medicine, not just fuel, right? We have Feng Shui that looks at our proper arrangement inside of our homes and our businesses for balance. We have herbology and pharmacology. We have that book I was talking about, the I Ching, the Book of Change, Unchanging Truths. And the purpose of that is for you to understand the underlying situations or the energy in underlying situations, so that way you don't make inappropriate decisions that, well, even if you're doing all this other stuff that could actually create health problems for you. We have our Tai Chi that helps to move our bodies in a way that mimic that of the universe. And, so there's so many things that we have. But the cool thing is that is based on one thing, and that's Qi.
Oh, Cool, which is actually a nice full circle because we had started off the discussion about Qi.
Again, everything is an expression of Qi. Just learning how to utilize it for different things can make all the difference in the world. You know, like our home is feng shuied. If you come to our office in San Jose, both homes are feng shui. The one in San Jose, the one here in LA. Our business is feng shuied as well too. And especially the business, because I have no control over what's going on in the patient's life outside the office. But when they come in, the first thing that we want them to do is be able to let go, unwind, and relax, because that's where the healing starts, even before they go into the treatment room for the session. So for me, my energetic space has to be clear. It's
Very particular.
Yeah, very particular about the energy of the space. Also, it has to be very calm as well too. I'm a wood type, and I'm very passionate. So some people say that I'm very intense, but it's just because I'm so passionate about things. But the reality is that my environment has to be calm as well too. So
and Jen said, and the temperature too.
And the temperature. I like it cold.
Actually, one of our biggest arguments is about the temperature, but that's a whole nother story. And then Bonnie says, you two need to clone yourself and do all these things.
Oh.
And actually, Bonnie, what's funny about that is I joked about that before. We need to clone Chris. The only caveat here is that the clone stays at the office and doesn't necessarily come home. One man at home will be enough. Thank you.
Well, on that note.
What a wonderful world this will be.
Okay, so once again, thank you guys for joining us on this beautiful
Joanne.
Sunday, and thank you for participating, and thank you for everybody that participated this full 7 days on the Qi Club. And I know there's a lot of you that watch the videos later on, but we really appreciate the support and the love. And for you that are brand new on Facebook that are watching this, you know, please take advantage of this opportunity. Our Qi Club, all the members on the Qi Club, you know, what I say is a bunch of like-minded individuals, in the sense that we all care about what's going on within ourselves and also care what's going on in the world and our environment. So it's a great way to connect with like-minded people from around the world.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
It's beautiful.
And since the topic of today is victory, should we do our victory chant 3 times?
Okay.
Just to wrap it up?
Okay.
I had been planning this, but I hadn't told you.
Okay.
Okay, so what you do is you raise your arms up overhead and create a V. All together now, and then we're going to say the chant victory 3 times out loud. Here we go. Ready?
Victory, victory, victory.
Then a big clap. And then we draw a line down the center midline and just take a nice deep breath and let that settle in and feel the collective consciousness and the healing that took place on this fine day in this beautiful question and answer. And we most appreciate your participation and good energy, good Qi. And it's been just our pleasure. So thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah.
All right. Yay.
All right, everybody have a blessed
Francis,
weekend. We will
love
see
you
you.
too.
And we will Qi you later.